Hello, vinyl community. Elliot here, Lazy Dogs Records. And I'm down here in my music room and was recently listening to some Piedmont Blues. And I thought to myself, why don't you do a video or two about the blues, and specifically about the Piedmont Blues? And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. On this first one in the series is going to be called Ladies First, because I'm going to talk to you about four very important and beautiful playing blues artists who happen to be female. Now, Piedmont blues is often not as recognized as some of the other forms of blues. Generally speaking, when the general public thinks about the blues, they think of one of two types of blues. They think of the Delta blues, and they think of the electric blues out of Chicago. Now, this was very popular music from around the time recordings, what they call race records, were starting to be made around 1925 till the end of World War II, 1945. So Piedmont blues were very popular. It was pop music for that 20-year period, I guess you might say. And of course, the biggest proponents, the ones that got recorded, Blind Boy Fuller, Blind Willie McTell, and a few others. Reverend Gary Davis, but he would kind of come into prominence a little later. So, as the music in its most popular uh, creation began to fade, as R&B began to take over, and then rock and roll, uh, the more rural or acoustic sounding blues uh, wasn't as popular. Uh, about 10 or 15 years later, uh, there was a resurgence for the Piedmont blues as part of the folk revival, roughly saying 10 years after the end of its popular run, uh, about 1955 uh, into the late 1960s, we had this folk revival. And that was another period of a lot of activity among these Piedmont blues artists. Now, what is the Piedmont blues? So a lot of these artists came from that Piedmont region of North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, uh, Georgia, down into northern Florida, and, out into Alabama a little bit and everything. But the Piedmont area generally. Thus, the name, the Piedmont Blues, sometimes called Carolina Blues, sometimes called the East Coast Blues. But for our purposes here, and most commonly is referred to as the Piedmont Blues. What makes it the Piedmont Blues and not Delta Blues or some other blues? Generally speaking, in a small tent definition, we're talking about finger picking acoustic guitars, thumb playing an alternating bass, and one or two fingers picking out the melody on the lighter strings. And a good example of this is Etta Baker here. So we've got this picking style that you see that characterizes Piedmont blues. And the material that they play, some of it is original, some of it comes from parlor songs, some of it comes from the old time tradition, some comes from Tin Pan Alley, a variety of sources and a variety of inspirations for the music. So you can't discount the string band music of that era and before, minstrel show music, uh, all kinds of influences, the medicine shows that would come through towns, things like that, and sheet music of the period, which is of course what people learned on uh, before the advent of the 78 recordings. So it's syncopated, it's very ragtimey, it's danceable. It's a happier sound than what you would get from your Delta blues. Uh, if you think of Delta blues as being, just letting loose of all those negative feelings through the music and feeling better afterwards, you would think of Piedmont blues as a happy, fun music to make you just forget about the bad things. The Piedmont blues were played uh, by whole families, by members of the community getting together and playing. Families would play, they didn't have television, a lot of people didn't have electricity, so they didn't have radios. Uh, and even when they did, they were musically inclined and they would sit down and they would play uh, music as a family or as neighbors. They would get together for corn shuckings, for all kinds of parties, uh, that sort of thing, square dances, all kinds of things that would lead to people playing music, and oftentimes it was this type of Piedmont blues. Now, I want to talk to you, as I said, about four different Piedmont blues artists, all of them very important. The first one I'll talk about is Elizabeth Cotton. Elizabeth Cotton was definitely from the Piedmont of North Carolina. She was from the Chapel Hill area, and she started out playing uh, her daddy's banjo when she was about 3. And pretty early on, she was able to acquire her own guitar, and she's been playing. She played for the rest of her life. So she started very young. Uh, Elizabeth, growing up there, she was left-handed, and you can imagine how hard it would have been to get a left-handed guitar. It would also be kind of difficult to get a right-handed guitar and convert it to left-handed. I've done that for myself. It there are things that don't quite work that way. All she did was simply flip the guitar over, and so she's playing the guitar. She's playing the melody with her thumb instead of her finger or fingers, and she's playing the bass line with her finger. So it makes for a somewhat uh, unique sound unto itself. She was writing songs as a little girl. She wrote Freight Train, It Ain't No Lie, which is a funny little story. She was this woman in the community, said that she had had her mama's Sunday hat on, uh, told on her, but actually it was her sister that was wearing the hat, and her mama whooped her instead of her sister for it. But what do you do? So she wrote a song about it. Baby, it ain't no lie. She won't lie, and it wasn't me, mama. And she wishes some of the worst things on that lady down the street that was lying on her. She was writing very young, but she got married. Her husband wasn't particularly interested in her playing music much anymore, though she kept playing at home. He didn't want her playing out too much, so she didn't do too much of that. Like many African Americans during this period, the Great Migration was taking place. Her family moved out of North Carolina and lived in New York for a while and Washington, D.C. While she was in Washington, D.C., she had a chance encounter with members of the Seeger family and became employed by them as a nanny for their children. And she got the nickname Libba because the smallest child could not say Elizabeth. It was too hard. So Libba Cotton, or Elizabeth Cotton, is what she's known as. Well, it was by chance that she was with one of the most important musical families in American music, the Seegers. One of the children she was a nanny for was Mike Seeger, and he recorded her playing. And this is from 1958. His recordings, home recordings, and it was released on Folkways. This is a repress. This is not one of the originals. And it is called Elizabeth Cotton, Folk Songs and Instrumentals with Guitar. And she does her most famous song, Freight Train, on here. She does Going Down the Road Feeling Bad. Uh, she does the Graduation March. And she does Honey Babe, Your Papa Cares for You. She does, let's see, Oh Baby, It Ain't No Lie, Spanish Fandango. Now, Elizabeth Cotton's career didn't start. She was born in 1893. So that first recording was 1958. So she was in her 60s before her career started as a professional musician. But she died, she was 94 years old approximately when she died. She played for the next 30 plus years after that recording. And she was a very popular folk artist. The next artist I want to tell you about is Etta Baker. Now, Etta Baker, this is a 2015 Etta Baker album, and it's called Railroad Bill. Music Maker Relief Foundation released this, and it's got some of her most well-known numbers. Railroad Bill, of course. Uh, she does her version of "Don't Let the Deal Go Down." She does "One Dime Blues," which is another one that's just very well known for her. And "Going Down the Road Feeling Bad." Maybe Let Me Lay It on You. John Henry. She actually plays a little, uses a knife and plays a little uh, slide guitar on that. So a deviation from that. But generally speaking, she plays thumb and finger or fingers uh, to to make the music that she makes. Now, she was born in Caldwell County, very musical family. And when she got married, she was 23 when she got married. But when she got married, she had she and her husband had children. And even though she played at home all the time, he didn't want her out playing because she needed to be home, obviously, with all the children they had. I think they had 9 children. And she worked at a textile mill for almost 30 years before she ever went professional. You see, the thing about it was the uh, female artists were much less likely to get recorded during that prime period of 25 to 45. They're much more likely to be home musicians just because of the expectations and demands of women during that time frame. Now, she was born in 1913 and she would live to be 90, 93 years old. So longevity was key. Now, a lot of these artists, you can't hardly find vinyl for them. Here's One Dime Blues, finger picking blues and traditional tunes. And the only way you can get this is as a CD. But When she was, let's see, when she was in her 40s, she ventured up to uh, Blowing Rock, North Carolina, the Moses Cone Mansion, and met someone there who was from New York, and his name was Paul Clayton. And he was a producer, a folk musician, and a producer. And she played for him on this, again, a chance meeting. She's in her 40s now, and or late 30s, and she plays for him. And he's very, very impressed. And he records or goes to her home the next day and ends up recording her. This will be in 1956. And the outcome of this is this album, Instrumental Music of the Southern Appalachians, banjo, fiddle, guitar, dulcimer, and harmonica. She was raised in the mountains and foothills, not the Piedmont of North Carolina. Just a wonderful artist. And this album came out in 56. And then in the mid 60s, they put out another album of the music from Caldwell County. And she is featured prominently in this and that other album, which I'm trying to find a copy of. But this is an important album because a lot of people heard this 1956 in the years afterwards. And there are no pictures on it, so they really don't know anything about these people. But the musical style was very influential, and a lot of people, you know, really came to appreciate this type of playing. So let's hear a little number from Etta Baker. Just what a great artist. Now I was not fortunate enough to have seen Elizabeth Cott while she was still active. But I did see Etta Baker a couple of times, and I was fortunate enough to see this next person I'm going to talk about, Aljamae Hint. I saw her a couple of times. Almost virtually impossible to get anything on vinyl from her. There's a couple of CDs you can look for and find, and there's one album in Switzerland that's half. She's on one side, and another artist is on the other side. But I'm trying to get a copy of that, but I've got to buy it from somebody in Switzerland. There's only one copy on Discogs. We'll see if this guy comes through for me. But Algemet Henson is from just down the road from me in Johnston County, one county over from where I live. Algemet Hinton. There she is. And like I say, I saw her a couple of times. They dedicated uh, a new building for the North Carolina Museum of History 40 years ago, 30 years ago, something like that. And I carried a VHS camera there, and I saw her and Etta Baker and many other artists, important artists, on that hot summer day. And I'm going to try to get that VHS converted uh, onto CD or whatever, or digitalized. But I also saw her at a festival in Fayetteville, North Carolina, in Cumberland County, and I was fortunate enough after the show. This would have been in the 90s. After the show, I got her to sign that. I mean, she was playing right there on the sidewalk. And I just walked over there, and it must have been her daughter or something with her. And I asked her if she would sign my copy of her CD. I bought the CD from her and asked her if she'd sign it. She really did quite. What you want me to put my name on it for, you know? And her daughter, I guess it was, she said, just scribble your name on there for him, Mama. He just wants you to sign it for him. And she did at that point. But I made a point of telling her how much I enjoyed her music. And very hard to find. If you find any of her stuff on vinyl, if you don't want it, tell me, because I do. Uh, Now, Aljamain was born in 1929. She lived to be 88 years old, and she died in 2018. Uh, Her life was all on the farm for the most part, except for about a 15-year period. She grew up in Johnston County on a farm, uh, and when she got married, her and her husband moved to Raleigh, the city. And see the migration, we talk about the Great Migration to the north, the African Americans to the northern cities, but also not everybody went that far. Some people, a lot of African Americans and general public as well, were moving from the rural areas to the cities, Raleigh and Durham and Charlotte, Wilmington and places like that, in search of better opportunities. She moved there with her husband. They had several children. Uh, I think it was 1950 when she moved there. She was 21, just married, and he didn't want her. He was very possessive, she said. He just was jealous of everything and wouldn't let her play hardly at all. And he was up in New York and somehow got killed. And she basically said, well, kind of good riddance to him because he had been evidently was not a good husband. So she moves back to the family land in Johnston County. She's in her mid 30s at this point, and is back to a life of working, working on farms, priming tobacco, picking cucumbers, uh, all the things that come picking cotton, even some, and all those sorts of things. Hard working lady raising these children, and she's playing at home now. She's as soon as her husband passed away, she got the guitar back out and was playing all the time, playing at home and playing for small gatherings in the community parties, fish fries, pig pickings, that sort of thing. And a guy named Glenn Henson, a folklorist from UNC Chapel Hill, he started recording her and documenting her work. And she was a great artist. Once again, she starts actually working, beyond just the community professionally. And, she was in her, 40s or so before she started, playing at folk festivals and things such as that. And so then she was able to generate some income through that. So she's a very, very entertaining lady. She also buck danced. Uh, she is a strong uh, advocate of buck dancing along with her guitar playing. But here she is showing off a little bit on the guitar. It's not just the rock stars that can show off.
Hey, I gotta give him things. I'm gonna sit down and do it instead of lazy.
Go behind her, Martha. Do it from behind.
How, baby? baby.
The fourth person I'll mention in this little Piedmont Blues ladies first episode is a lady that was born much later. She was born in 1942, and just right at the very end of the heyday of the Piedmont Blues. And she's from Georgia, near Columbus, Georgia, and her name is Precious Bryant. And she only lived to be 71, but she was discovered and recorded some in the 1960s, and just folklorist type recordings, and that was it. And it's very hard to get any music uh, on vinyl from her. I have ordered a uh, album that was a record store day release in 2015, a couple of years after she passed away. I haven't gotten that in yet, but she is another important artist from Georgia this time. I'll leave you with a little music from Precious Bryant, and I'll remind you that, folks, be kind to your neighbors. We're all neighbors. Love your brothers and your sisters. We're all brothers and sisters. So here's Precious Bryant closing us out. Take care.
Wanna see my chauffeur, wanna see my chauffeur. I want him to drive, I want him to drive.